Today we are going to discuss wedding processions. Like many other processions, Rath Yatra of Puri, different processions in South India, different processions of related to different kind of commemoration and celebrations. So, because India is a country of festivals, and each and every festival is related to some kind of um, ritual, and sometime this ritual include a kind of procession. So you will find a lot of processions in South India, processions related to um, temples, processions related to some other rituals, like in every community. Jain community takes out their own processions. Sikh communities take out their own procession to commemorate the death or the birth of a guru. Muslims also takes out processions for commemorating Muharram, commemorating the shahadat of Prophet, martyrdom of Prophet's grandson. And also people take out processions. Muslim people generally take out processions on Eid Miladun Nabi, that is Prophet's birthday. So these processions are related to different religion, different communities. What I mean to say here is that all communities in India or South Asia generally takes out processions for according to their own religious belief and customs. But this kind of procession is also taken out in South Asia, basically this subcontinent, during the wedding ceremony, wedding of an individual. This procession is called the barat procession, wherein the groom with his friends and family members goes to the house of the bride and comes back with the bride. You must have, in fact, seen this kind of processions in day-to-day life. But this procession is also very important procession. How and why? This is the subject of our discussion today. So generally people see these kind of processions and think that these processions are basically part of the extravagant Indian wedding, that big fat wedding as considered by the people of foreign lands, that Indian weddings are the big weddings and extravagant weddings, which is true. So this Bharat procession or wedding processions are generally taken out in present day to show or show the wealth of the people who is getting married, or those who are sponsoring that marriage. Why I'm saying sponsoring is that it has something to do with different economy, different kind of economy, marriage economy. Basically, we are trying to understand here different kind of procession and its importance. Importance Importance of procession, this wedding procession. What is the importance of wedding procession? Wedding procession in in actual matter. So this procession has some kind of ritual significance. What kind of ritual significance? We have seen that like those processions are related to religion. This is also a kind of part of religio cultural rituals related to one's individual life. Because, as we know, in Hindu society, from the birth of a child to the death of that person, uh, we generally celebrate every stage of life, and that stage of life is ritualized in a manner that can be associated with religious practices and social life of that person. uh, so these stages are in fact ritualized in different kind of samskars. So in Hindu society there are 16 samskars marking different stages in the life of the child. uh, from the conception and the protection of the fetus, conception of the child and the protection of the fetus, from the birth, and different kinds of sanskars are there. Okay, so for example, you have uh, sanskar related to annaprashan, upanayan sanskar, the wearing of sacred thread, and then you have vivah sanskar. And unless you are going in on a one going to become a one prasth, or taking sannyas, uh, uh, you will be given the last rite, that is after death. So what I mean to say that for a general grihasth person, a person who is leading a household life, is given the last rite of marriage before the actual last rite, that is after death. So this wedding or the marriage basically is a kind of it's not a kind of sanskar, rather it's a sanskar, very important sanskar. So this sanskar has a lot of ritual in it. These ritual can be uh, the wedding ritual, or the wedding ritual can be in fact called a kind of bouquet of different rituals. Like you have varmala, you have pheras, so uh, giving away of sindoor, kanyadan in a way. So the whole marriage is a kind of bouquet of different kind of rituals. So it has ritual significance. The barat or the wedding procession has its own ritual value. So without barat, uh, a wedding ceremony cannot be considered complete. So in modern times, even though people are performing their marriage ceremonies in a hotel or some small places like barat ghar, they generally take out a kind of symbolic wedding processions. So that is an important and integral part of Indian weddings, and especially in Indic society. So it's kind of important right, important uh, religious right. That means something has to do with religion has to do with religion has something to do with this particular wedding procession. So it cannot be, in fact, brushed away as a kind of foolish or simple ritual, simple tradition or custom in society. So all kind of, as you know, all kind of rituals has something to do with different kinds of uh, different kinds of music, different kinds of sounds, different kinds of gathering. So all these rituals, whether it is we are talking, whether you talk about the processions related to hardcore religious matters, or you talk about the wedding procession, everything has a kind of choreography. It has a kind of different kind of components related to sound, music, space, and everything. So a kind of choreography will be there. So in a wedding, Indian, especially I'm talking about North Indian wedding, you will see a lot of ritual aspect to it. Over the period of time, these kind of choreography changes, but certainly it keep the core concept. So it is important to understand the ritual and choreography of barat or wedding procession. So and also one thing must be kept in mind, and that is in South Asia, almost all religious communities generally take out their barat or wedding processions, whether the person is from Sikh background or Jain or Muslim or whoever, or Buddhist. Everyone, every community takes out its wedding procession. So it's a kind of influence of Indic culture, Indic concept of samskar. So these kind of things will be there, but the choreography may vary community to community. Like if you are talking about the Muslim weddings, certainly you may find that they do not imply band in some in areas where they live in a dominant live as a dominant community. But in those areas where in dominance and influence of other communities are there, even they imply the bands people to play in their wedding processions. They do dance in the barat, they do play bands and play music in the barat. So each and every society, each and every community have their own ways of expressing happiness, khushi, happiness or auspiciousness. Okay, so these barats will have a kind of choreography where if you are talking about especially Hindu barat, or barat of a Sikh or a Jain, you will find that there is a choreography. You must have seen, people can see on the roads in everyday life that the bands people, in fact, mark the space. Bands people generally play band and mark the space, a kind of create a kind of wall between the between the outer world and the inner world of that barat. So this music in fact gave a kind of importance, not importance, it's kind of privacy to the people who are in fact performing in the barat. So how this choreography is work, this is important, but because you will see that the barat will be led by a band. In earlier times it was led by a band, but now you will see that the most unskilled persons of the band generally lead the barat, and then the main core, those who are playing drum or different kinds of brass instrument, they will form the core of the barat around the groom, and that groom on the horseback will be the passive participant of that part of his barat, his own barat. So and other people like the friends of that groom follow the groom dancing, and then comes the number of middle-aged men, and then women, and sometime in the last portion of the barat you will find teli, in fact, so telia, on which you will see a lot of sound systems are placed, and so this kind of a fanciful and fanciful kind of barat you will see. So basically there will be you will notice two things. First is the music people, that is the band people, those band people who play bands, brass bands, and those people who carry lights. So these two peoples in fact mark the place, mark the space, wherein people can in fact dance, people can perform. So basically what is happening here in the barat procession, or the choreography of barat, is that and the bands who are playing loudly are in fact disconnecting people from the outside world. Okay, so in a way they are creating a kind of tunnel between the house of the groom, where they assemble as a barat, and the house of the girl or the bride, where they in fact dance for some moment, and in fact reassemble in modern times, because most of the barat actually go, if it is going in another town or another city, they generally cover that longer part on bus, car, or train. So they reassemble before the coming of the bride's house, and they in fact reassemble there, and then march forming the assemblage as a barat towards the house of the bride. So basically this barat, Padal Barat, makes a kind of ritualistic expression the expression that the groom is going to the house of bride, and by doing this act, in fact what he is doing, what the barat is doing, that it's a kind of announcing to the people, announcing that this guy is getting married today to the particular that girl, that bride, and it's a kind of announcement for social sanction for the relationship between the two individuals, the bride and the groom. So basically, these brass bands, the lightsmen, all these people, in fact, create a kind of um, a space, create a kind of tunnel between the house of the groom to the house of the bride. And in that tunnel, people, in fact, what is happening here is it's the people, this space, the private space, the groom's place, the groom's home, groom's house is basically it's a private place. And when he is coming out of that private place and going into public, to announce his wedding in barat procession, so he is coming out of a private place and going into a public place. And again he is terminating his journey. The barat, whole barat is terminating its journey after reaching the girl's house or the bride's house. So what is happening here, that in a way people are coming out of their private space and going into a public place to announce the marriage, and at the same time they create a kind of a comfortable private place. They convert the public place into a kind of private place by playing loud music. What happens with the loud music? Loud music generally engulf the different kinds of sounds which are coming from out of the out on the roads, or like the sounds of traffic, like the sounds of horn and etc. So basically, what is it doing? It's the sound is basically creating a kind of wall between the public place, so-called public place, and the newly created private place. So what is happening here, that basically a kind of tunnel is being created from the groom's house to the bride's house. Okay, so basically this music, the work of music is to basically turn the public place into a private place, safer for the people who are in fact participating in that particular barat or particular procession. So so you will see that all people, like the friends of the groom, the family members of the groom are generally dance in that particular barat. So they feel comfortable in dancing in that barat. Why? Because they feel that all the sounds, in fact all the sounds are in fact submerges into the sound of the band, and that is why they this sound of band in fact gives a kind of sense of privacy to those people who are in fact dancing or performing into that barat. So it makes them comfortable. So even the ladies of the groom's family who are accompanying the barat generally they dance without any hesitation. So earlier what was the norm? Basically these performances of dance was a kind of hired thing. Those people who are coming from an elite family generally hired people to dance in the barat in earlier days. But now these elite people also has started dancing into the barat. Okay, so things are changing, no doubt, but certainly these choreography are still there. Okay, so these lights and these brass bands are in fact turning the public place into a kind of private place for those people who are participating in the barat. So that is why they feel comfortable while dancing on the road in public, in simple in other days, people will feel, in fact, a kind of shame in dancing in the public. But these people who are celebrating the marriage of their child, or their brother or son, in fact, they do not feel any hesitation in dancing at that moment. And in fact, in today's time, it is expected from the near ones of those who are getting married to dance in the barat, to dance in the wedding procession. So they are expected to dance in the procession, and that is why they are, in fact, dancing. So there is no problem at all. People are participating in the dance very willingly, and this kind of comfortable space are actually created by the light and sound, basically, especially the brass bands. So however, in earlier times, the wedding ceremony, accompanied by these kind of musics, had a kind of ritual significance earlier, because as we know, in most of the rituals related to religion, related to different kinds of different kind of rituals related to religion, basically accompanied with music. So we have different kinds of ragas, different kinds of instrument for playing in different kind of rituals. Like Shehnai is considered to be auspicious, and this Shehnai is generally played in the in wedding ceremonies, whereas some other instrument like mirdang and other different kind of instruments are played according to the occasion. Okay, so here the brass band has kind of ritualistic value. It had a kind of ritualistic value. So these people earlier were considered to be the people who are making that particular barat ceremony, or the wedding procession, in fact, a kind of auspicious. So these people, those brass band people, or the people who were the performer into the barat, were basically a kind of auspiciousness creator. So they generally created auspiciousness in that particular barat. So even though those who are those who were performers, or those who are bands people, are basically, in fact, generally they are from the lower caste background. So they were even though they are from lower caste background, they were allowed to a certain degree to participate in that, in making that particular procession in auspicious. So it's a beautiful thing that these musicians, who are otherwise some time considered untouchable at that time, in earlier times, but they were at the same time, when the religious conservative people generally considered them untouchable, so at the same time they considered them the maker of auspiciousness. So these people generally had different kind of rituals associated with with barat. So they were indispensable for barat, so they had to be implied into a barat procession or wedding procession. So so basically, what I mean to say here is that each and every component of the barat procession, or the wedding procession has something to do with not only the show of not only with showing of wealth, rather it's a kind of announcement. The barat wedding procession is a kind of announcement that so and so is getting married today, so that people other people may not come to their houses for the for propose for a new proposal to that person. And so it's a kind of it was a kind of social message to the audience who are outside. The other thing was that basically in these music, these performances, dances and everything was basically a kind of auspiciousness maker. So these people generally by playing their band, by playing shehnai, or doing some ritual, they were making the Bharat procession auspicious. But now what is happening nowadays time, that the performances are done by the people related to the groom himself, his brother, his friends, his women relatives. So these people are even in the elite families, people are ready to dance. So these people are performing for themselves, and these bands people are playing their instrument to not to make the Bharat procession auspicious now, but rather it has become a kind of show of wealth and prestige. So why? Because the employment of band people is they generally these people generally imply the elite people who are sponsoring those barat generally imply those, if somebody is very rich, he will imply 101 people in the band. Those who are little less rich will imply 51 people in the band. So basically it has become a kind of show of wealth. The Bharat procession is generally can be seen today that it is a kind of expression of wealth of the person who is sponsoring the Bharat. Okay, why I'm every time saying sponsoring the Bharat? Because these days these expenditures, these expenses are sometimes taken from the girl's family. Otherwise it is generally considered that society generally consider that basically this is being spent by the groom's side. But it is not necessary these days. These days people keep condition on the families of the girls just to show off their wealth and their prestige in the society. So that is why I was saying the sponsor of the marriage. So but sometime it in fact increases the prestige of the groom's father and groom's side than that of the bride's side. Why? Because it is considered that the expenditure on the barat is generally done by the groom's side. So it also has a kind of different kind of economy. So what I mean to say by all these things is basically that wedding processions is not only the extravaganza, it's a component of wedding ritual, and it has its own choreography, it has its own significance, it has it has a kind of religious social significance. So basically what I mean to say that this whole the whole procession was once a kind of part of ritual which has now become a kind of show of wealth. Okay, so this is what can be understood from this particular article, which has been prescribed to you uh, by Gregory D. Booth. I think I have tried to make clear what it means to be in a barat, to be in a in this kind of procession, or to understand this kind of procession. So it is important to understand that whatever we see today is not just a simple part of our old tradition or culture. It has some kind of meaning in it. Without meaning, nothing is in fact performed in the public, because performance, any kind of performance, any kind of procession is a kind of show. It's a kind of showing something to the other people, because if you do not want to show, then it must have been performed within the limits of the house. Okay, so if you are coming out in the public, that means you are trying to show something. So certainly it was a kind of show of so it has become a kind of show of wealth. But earlier it was a kind of announcement to the public, okay, that your son is getting married on this day, and that means other people are not welcome after this time for his proposal of marriage, for the purpose of marriage, basically. So it was a kind of social sanction. It was a kind of getting social sanction for the two individuals relationship. Okay, thank you.